So, stop scrolling. Stop whatever you were about to do in the next 10 seconds, because what unfolded in a public square in Geneva over the weekend may turn out to be the single most awkward moment of Meghan Markle's entire post-royal career. And the most extraordinary part of it is that nobody had to lift a finger against her. She walked into the moment on her own, dressed head to toe in Armani, and stood in it for the cameras until the cameras quietly drifted away. Picture the scene: a broad, fountain-flanked square in central Geneva, directly outside the European headquarters of the United Nations. A serious international stage. Meghan in a black Giorgio Armani trouser suit, her hair pulled severely back. Alongside her stood the Director General of the World Health Organization, delivering a formal address to mark the opening of a major international health gathering. The kind of stage every public figure dreams about being booked onto. The kind of stage that, in theory, transforms a celebrity into a stateswoman. And then look at the wide shots. Look at the footage that has now been circulating across royal commentary channels for days. Cars driving past in the background. Tourists wandering through the square without breaking stride. A woman pushing a pram who does not even turn her head as she passes the staging area. Two women who appeared across the road behind the lectern turned away, refusing to wait for the speech to finish. The signature backdrop of one of the most photographed cities in international diplomacy, with virtually nobody actually stopping to watch the future global stateswoman deliver her message of a lifetime. Tonight, I'm going to walk you through every gossip beat of this story: the empty square, the Instagram post Meghan published less than 24 hours before the speech that managed to torpedo the event before it had even started, the wardrobe estimate floating around in the press that has to be seen to be believed, and the 4-year-old daughter who somehow keeps ending up at the center of the marketing frame. The morning show completely ignored the speech and instead led with a picture of the daughter. Then came the unforgettable verdict from the senior British journalist who flew to Geneva specifically to witness the event in person and went on to write one of the most carefully damning royal columns of the entire year. And then there was the brutal comparison to another royal woman on another tour just 1 week earlier, drawing crowds that Meghan would have given anything to stand in front of. So, get comfortable. Pour yourself something strong, because this is the kind of story you only get once or twice a year. The kind where the contradictions are so loud, so visible, and so impossible to explain away that even the friendly press genuinely does not know what to do with it. Let us start with the booking itself, because on paper, the booking was a triumph. Meghan was scheduled to stand alongside Dr. Tedros Adhanom, the Director General of the World Health Organization, at a high-profile event timed to coincide with the opening of the World Health Assembly. By every honest measurement, this was an A-list global stage, the kind of stage that takes years of careful charitable work to access. The kind of stage that is supposed to transform a personal brand into a public mission. Senior journalists in royal commentary openly framed this as Meghan's Angelina Jolie moment, perhaps her chance to break out of celebrity gossip and step into the territory of serious humanitarian respectability. It was, in the careful words of one British journalist who was actually there in the square, heavyweight stuff. In his view, Meghan should have been laser-focused on the opportunity it offered her to present herself as a serious person. Geneva is a serious city. It is full of serious people. The international aid community based there is currently under enormous pressure. Budgets are being cut. Jobs were being lost. Long-career professionals were watching the programs they had built being hollowed out. Into that very specific atmosphere walked Meghan in her lilac coat, ready, in theory, to claim the space. And here is the part that genuinely matters about the booking, because the gossip world should pause and acknowledge it before piling in. Bookings of this scale do not happen by accident. They happen because a campaign has chosen you. They happen because an institution has chosen you. They happen because somebody on the international diplomatic and aid circuit has decided that you bring more value to the platform than the platform brings to you. So when a booking like Geneva lands on a calendar, the team around the figure has every reason to treat it as a defining moment. The right preparation, the right messaging, the right advance work, and the right social media plan in the days leading up to it, all of that, in any normal communications operation, would have been calibrated down to the second. The booking, in other words, was a gift. And the question every observer is now asking is, what on earth was that gift traded for 24 hours before the curtain went up? And there is a wider gossip angle sitting underneath the Geneva booking that very few commentators have flagged. The institutional framing of the event stated that it was co-hosted by Archwell Philanthropies, the same Archwell Foundation that, by late 2025, had quietly closed. So the very name of the partner organization on the formal billing of the Geneva event was, institutionally speaking, a ghost, a flagship philanthropic vehicle that no longer existed in the way the public had once been told it did. That detail on its own would not necessarily be a scandal in the routine operation of public charity branding. But placed in this context, it becomes much harder to ignore. Alongside everything else, it tells you something about the structural state of the Sussex mission. The brand still books the stages, but the institutional infrastructure underneath the brand is no longer what it once was. The contrast between what is on stage and what is happening behind the stage is now extremely wide. Now, to what actually happened in that square, because the speech itself, by every honest professional assessment, was perfectly delivered. Meghan hit her marks. She did not stumble over a single syllable. She kept the cadence tight, the eye contact controlled, and the gestures measured. As a piece of pure platform craft, she did the job. If you evaluated the performance solely on technical execution, you would call it professional. But the wide shots told a story the performance itself could not control. There is a particular kind of awkwardness that creeps into a public address when the speaker is impeccably dressed, the venue is impeccably staged, and the lectern is impeccably positioned. Yet behind it, you can see a city carrying on without you. Geneva did not stop for Meghan. Tourists did not put down their phones and turn toward her. The square did not fill up. The footage that has now been screen-grabbed, clipped, and reshared across royal commentary channels shows a speaker addressing a thin, in-person audience while the city carried on with its evening directly behind her shoulder. One commentator joked, with some accuracy, that if you stripped away the staff and media who were required to be there for work, the only thing left in the square would have been the flagpole. The frame-by-frame analysis from the royal commentary community has now become a genre of its own. Observers noted the woman pushing a pram who walked past the lectern without breaking stride, the pair of women who crossed the road behind the stage without waiting for the speech to finish, and the drivers visible at the edges of the shot who simply continued their evening commute without paying attention. The tourists visible in the wider shots were not photographing the speaker. They were photographing the famous broken chair monument that has stood in the square for years. In any honest assessment, the vast majority of the people captured on camera were not there for Meghan. They were there because the square is a public square. They walked past her the same way you would walk past any speaker in any public square in any major European city. As one waggish observer pointed out, if Meghan were truly the kind of security threat her official entourage seemed to suggest, then where exactly were the crowds being held back from? There was nobody to hold back. There was simply a square doing what public squares do. There is also a question that several commentators raised with quiet amusement, and it has become one of the sharper gossip threads of the weekend. If nobody is there, why does Meghan need security? The footage shows people casually walking by, traffic continuing uninterrupted, no crowd to control, and no perimeter to defend. The optics of an enormous private security operation surrounding a speaker who is being passed in real time by women pushing prams are, in purely visual terms, not the optics of a global humanitarian moment. Instead, it creates the impression of a star insisting on a star-sized footprint at an event the audience had already declined to treat as a major star appearance. And once you notice that gap, it becomes impossible to ignore. Now, to frame this honestly, a small in-person crowd at a Geneva speech is not, by itself, the whole story. Serious international policy events frequently attract modest in-person audiences. The audience that matters for an event like this is usually the wider audience reached through media coverage, live streams, diplomatic networks, corporate guest lists, and the global reach of the institutions involved. So, in fairness, an empty square alone does not settle anything. What makes the empty square resonate the way it does is the brutal contrast surrounding it. What made the contrast so striking was the timing. while Meghan was standing in a quiet square in Geneva before a small live audience. Just 1 week earlier, the Princess of Wales had stepped out of a car alone in Reggio Emilia, Italy, to roaring crowds who had traveled for hours simply to see her. People drove in from across the region. The enthusiasm was real, organic, and impossible to fake. She spoke the local language fluently back to the locals. Royal historians later described the reception as one of the most natural and purposeful royal tours in recent memory. The same fortnight, the same general continent. Two royal women on two completely different projects, receiving two dramatically different public reactions. And when you compare the two trips beat by beat, the contrast becomes genuinely extraordinary. Catherine, Princess of Wales, was in Italy on a working visit centered around early childhood development research, a subject she has spent more than a decade quietly building expertise in. She arrived alone, without Prince William, on a fact-finding mission focused on meetings with educators and children. She sat on the floor with toddlers. She made pasta on camera. She spoke fluent Italian to children, a detail many viewers genuinely did not know was part of her background. The reception in the streets was so overwhelming that royal correspondents struggled to find historical comparisons for the scale of the welcome. Royal historian Hugo Vickers, a commentator known for being famously cautious, publicly described the trip as a perfect royal tour, with nothing about it appearing staged or manufactured. Meanwhile, Meghan in Geneva was delivering a single ceremonial address attached to a launch event whose underlying campaign had first been unveiled in New York City a little over a year earlier. The Armani suit, the diamond and emerald necklace, the carefully styled hair, and the perfectly positioned lectern all projected polish and control. The lectern was positioned in front of the famous broken chair monument so that, from the camera angle, the staging appeared statesmanlike. Yet behind it all was a square that politely declined to fill up. One project arrived at its setting with a decade of accumulated credibility behind it. The other arrived hoping the setting itself would provide the credibility. The first approach worked. The second, as the footage showed in real time, did not. That is the contrast that now feels impossible to escape, because the public saw both images side by side within the span of a single week. The same media platforms carried both stories, and the comparison did not flatter the side that has spent more years and more money trying to manufacture exactly that kind of warmth. But in the end, the empty square is not the most damaging gossip beat of this story. The most damaging moment came from a single Instagram post published less than 24 hours before Meghan stepped up to the Geneva lectern. And it is that post which has left serious commentators openly asking the same question. Does she genuinely not see the problem? On the Saturday before the speech, Meghan posted an image to her 4.5 million Instagram followers. The photograph was taken inside a walk-in closet. In the image, Meghan is wearing a lilac coat and taking a mirror selfie. Crouched at her feet, facing away from the camera with red hair tied in a ponytail, is her 4-year-old daughter. A men's blazer hangs prominently on a rail to the right. Behind them, reflected in the mirror, are dozens upon dozens of garments packed tightly onto clothing racks. The British journalist who attended the Geneva event later estimated in his column that nearly $250,000 worth of clothing could be seen in that single frame. He admitted he could be wrong, and suggested the total might actually be even higher. Hold that image in your mind, because every detail matters. Read the post quickly, and it becomes clear why the reaction was so intense. At first glance, the image looked like a casual moment, a mother and daughter selfie, a mom getting ready for an event. But when you look more carefully, the framing tells a very different story. The Armani jacket that Meghan would wear to the Geneva event the following evening was positioned prominently within the shot. The black shoes she would later step out in were also clearly visible in the same composition. What was presented in the caption as a tender mother-daughter moment was, in the view of multiple observers, also functioning as a preview of the next day's carefully planned outfit. It is important to be precise about how that framing works, because the technique is subtle, and the subtlety is the entire point. A 4-year-old child crouched at her mother's feet naturally becomes the emotional center of the frame. The viewer's eye immediately goes to the child. The image registers as warmth, intimacy, and an affectionate family moment captured in passing. Only on a second look does the rest of the composition fully come into focus. The Armani jacket hanging exactly where the eye can find it, the crowded clothing racks establishing the scale of the wardrobe, and the mirror selfie angle placing the lilac coat in perfect profile. Every element of that image appears carefully positioned, and the marketing effect of the photograph is built around the presence of a small child. There was also another detail that close observers quickly noticed, the kind of detail that becomes impossible to ignore once someone points it out. A royal commentary writer behind a popular account quietly argued that the Mama's Little Helper framing of the post resembled a textbook merchandising shot. The shoes Meghan would wear to the speech were clearly visible in the frame. The Armani jacket was hung precisely where the camera could capture it. The lilac coat was already being modeled in selfie profile. And when viewers compared the Instagram post with photographs of Meghan on stage in Geneva the following evening, the wardrobe planning had essentially been pre-announced inside the closet itself. The audience had already seen the outfit. They had already seen the wardrobe context, and they had already seen the 4-year-old child positioned as the warm, emotional element that transformed the marketing into what appeared to be a family moment rather than a fashion shoot. The senior British journalist who traveled to Geneva specifically to cover the event, Tom Sykes of the Daily Beast's Royalist Substack, was so struck by the post that he devoted his entire column to it. Meanwhile, Daily Mail showbiz correspondent Alison Boshoff, who joined Sykes on his podcast the following day, admitted that she had been out the previous night in Cannes when she checked Instagram and initially wondered whether she had simply had too much rose wine. But no, there it was. Two of the most experienced royal correspondents covering this couple, both of whom have reported on them closely for years, reacting with genuine disbelief to a single Instagram post. Sykes then laid out the hypothetical conversation that, in his view, should have happened behind the scenes. Imagine, he said, walking into the office of any communications professional in the world and saying, "Tomorrow I'm appearing at a major United Nations event in Geneva alongside the World Health Organization. Potentially the biggest moment of my life, my opportunity to become an Angelina Jolie-style humanitarian figure. Should I post something on social media tonight?" And then imagine suggesting that the post should be a photograph of yourself standing in a dressing room surrounded by clothing worth, potentially, 25 times the annual salary of the average person many believe the World Health Organization exists to help. According to Sykes, no communications professional on Earth would have recommended making that post. Which, he argued, leaves only two possible explanations. Either the Sussex operation is not seeking professional advice, or it is receiving advice and choosing to ignore it. And that became the core of Sykes's working theory. The conclusion Tom Sykes drew from years of conversations with people who have worked with and around the couple was that the second explanation is far more likely. According to sources he has spoken with, the Sussexes are considered extremely difficult to advise. They simply do what they want. The podcast appearance with Alison Boshoff the following day added another layer to the story, because Boshoff is one of the most experienced show business correspondents in the British press, and her reaction was not calm or carefully measured commentary. It was genuine disbelief captured on tape. She described checking Instagram from Cannes the night before the speech and thinking, "No, this cannot possibly be the post she has just uploaded on the eve of the biggest moment of her humanitarian career." The fact that two journalists at that level of the British media independently arrived at the exact same shocked reaction and then openly compared notes about it on a podcast is itself revealing. To many observers, it suggested the operation had crossed a line that even previously sympathetic commentators could no longer comfortably defend. And that diagnosis lies at the center of why this story keeps repeating itself. If the closet post had been a one-time mistake, it could easily have been dismissed as a bad day or poor judgment in the moment. But critics argue that the broader pattern of Sussex public relations, repeated across years and continents, suggests it is not a one-off incident at all. Instead, they believe it reflects the operating system itself. And according to numerous accounts from people who have worked with or around the couple, that operating system appears deeply resistant to the kind of disciplined, carefully coordinated planning that an event of this scale normally demands. The sheer number of senior communications professionals who have moved through the Sussex orbit over the past several years has itself become a small case study. Sarah Latham, recruited from the Clinton political world. Catherine Isileron, the first chief of staff in the United States, who lasted less than a year. Jason Knopf, whose role within royal communications became highly significant during some of the most turbulent periods surrounding the couple. The name has been linked to the most consequential leaks of the entire post-royal era: Christian Jones, Toya Holness, and a revolving door of credentialed press operatives, each of whom arrived expecting to bring discipline, and most of whom either departed quickly or moved on to other royal courts. The pattern is consistent. The professionals come in, the professionals offer their advice, the advice runs into the operating mode, and then the professionals are gone. The chair empties, the next candidate is recruited, and the cycle begins again. That is not a structural accident. That is the choice the operation has made again and again about what kind of advice it is willing to take. Tom Sykes also laid out what should have been done instead, and it is worth dwelling on because it shows you just how avoidable the mess was. Imagine, he said, that the Sussex team had used the entire weekend to drive attention toward Geneva. Imagine a post on Saturday saying, "I am flying to Geneva tomorrow for the most important speech of my year. Here is the link to the campaign. Here is what I want you to read. Prince Harry is not coming with me. Here is why." Imagine the audience arriving on Sunday evening already primed for the message. Instead, the audience arrived on Sunday evening with the previous night's image of a closet still on their screens. The signal got drowned in the noise that the messenger herself had created. And then came the punctuation mark of the entire weekend, delivered by an American morning television show that decided, perhaps unintentionally, perhaps not, to write the final verdict. Good Morning America, the American network on ABC. By the morning after Meghan Markle's Geneva speech, the ABC News social account was not leading with footage of the address. It was not leading with the Director General of the World Health Organization. It was not leading with the speech itself. Instead, it was leading with a Good Morning America story headlined around Meghan Markle giving fans another rare look at life with her 4-year-old daughter. Read that again. Again, the big global stage on Sunday night, the closet photograph on Saturday night, and the network coverage on Monday morning ignored Sunday entirely and went straight to the daughter from Saturday. That single editorial choice is its own piece of gossip. BC, remember, is a network Meghan Markle has historically prized as a relationship. Good Morning America is the kind of slot a publicist would, under normal circumstances, kill to land. So, the fact that the ABC News brand chose, on its main social channel, to amplify the Saturday closet image rather than the Sunday Geneva address is not a small editorial decision. It is a tell. It is the network telling everybody watching, in real time, what content actually drives engagement on the Sussex page. And the content that drives engagement, by the network's own observed behavior, is not the speech. It is the daughter. That is the engagement economy operating in plain view. The closet photograph drove more clicks, more comments, more shares, and more saved bookmarks than the speech ever could. So, the network chose the closet over the speech because the network is in the business of getting clicked. And in choosing the closet, the network confirmed on the record what the speech the previous evening had implicitly criticized: that the algorithm rewards exactly the content the speaker had spent her speech criticizing. That if you put a famous person and a small child in the same frame, the audience will choose that frame over almost any other image you give them. That image of a 4-year-old is, in the cold language of the platform, worth more than a stateswoman. Now ask yourself the strategic question. If you are the team around Meghan Markle, and you have just watched ABC pull the engagement away from your serious moment and toward the daughter, what do you do next? Do you stop posting the daughter? Or do you double down on the daughter because the daughter is what works? The pattern of the last several years suggests one answer. And the pattern, by every available indication, is not about to change. And here is the wider commercial reality, because the gossip beats only fully make sense when you understand the pressure underneath them. By widely reported accounts, the Sussex lifestyle in Montecito requires somewhere in the region of $6 million a year just to maintain the basic infrastructure: the security operation, the mortgage, the staff, and the schools. That number does not include any premium living, any travel, or any new ventures. It is the floor. And the income side of that ledger has, by every available report, been under genuine strain. The As Ever brand has not been the engagement driver it was supposed to be. Sales coverage has been mixed at best. The Netflix relationship cooled significantly. The Spotify deal ended some time ago. The Hollywood doors that were supposed to swing open after the Palace departure have, for the most part, stayed stubbornly shut. In that context, every Instagram post that includes a 4-year-old daughter, a designer outfit, and reliably drives a wave of engagement is not a casual family moment. It is, by structural design, a commercial asset on a balance sheet that needs every commercial asset it can find. Once you see the operation that way, the closet photograph stops looking like a misjudgment. It starts looking like a perfectly rational play executed by a team that is doing exactly what the numbers tell it to do, even when the optics of the timing make the press wince. There is one more gossip beat that explains why all of this happened in the first place, and it concerns the relationship between Lilibet, the 4-year-old, and her older brother Archie, who is 7. Tom Sykes drew attention in his column to an observation that several other commentators have quietly echoed the same point. Archie, at 7, appears increasingly to be out of the picture in the family's commercial output. Lilibet at 4 is everywhere. Tom Sykes raised the obvious possibility, framing it carefully and reasonably. An older child has perhaps begun to indicate that he no longer wants to be photographed and posted online. A 4-year-old has not yet acquired the language to express the same preference. That is not idle speculation. That is a senior royal correspondent looking at the public output of an entire family and noticing which child appears in which content. And the pattern, once you see it, is hard to unsee. It is worth noting how much that observation has rippled through the wider royal commentary world over the past few days because it has struck a nerve. There is something quietly chilling about the pattern when you place it next to the dates and ages. Archie is photographed less and less. The brother who can articulate a preference appears in fewer frames. The sister who cannot yet say no appears in more frames, and in more carefully composed frames, as the months go by. The optics of that, dressed up as casual family content, is precisely the kind of thing that makes serious observers reach for historical parallels. And the historical parallels, by and large, do not have happy endings. Tom Sykes also reached for those historical parallels because they are unavoidable. Andre Agassi's memoir, Open, written, as it happens, by the same ghostwriter who produced Prince Harry's memoir, Spare, devoted an entire arc to Agassi's lifelong resentment of a father who forced him into a public career before he was old enough to consent. The Michael Jackson childhood, under Joe Jackson, became a template that we now reference whenever a public family blurs the line between a child's private development and a parent's public brand. The pattern, across decade after decade of public life, is consistent. Adults who monetize their children's youth tend, over time, to produce deeply unhappy adults. That is not a tabloid jab. That is a recurring feature of the social history of celebrity. Pull back from the individual beats now and look at the wider shape of the gossip. The Sussex Post-Royal project, by its own design, depends on being taken seriously when it claims to be serious, while also reliably converting attention into engagement, clicks, and product sales. Those two objectives keep colliding. Every time a serious stage is booked, the same operating mode that drives the brand also drives the contradiction. The Centibale governance collapse in early 2025 did this for the African charity Prince Harry founded in his mother's memory. The Archwell Foundation closure last year did it for the philanthropic vehicle that was supposed to be the institutional spine of the entire post-royal mission. The Invictus Games financial questions are doing it for the project that was supposed to be untouchable. And this week, Geneva did it for the latest cause. Let me dwell on that pattern for a moment because, once you see it, the whole post-royal arc reads differently. Start with Centibale, the charity Prince Harry co-founded as a young man in 2006 to honor his mother's memory, the single best argument, for many years, that he was a serious humanitarian rather than a gossip figure. In early 2025, the entire governance structure imploded in public view. The chair publicly accused Prince Harry and the board of bullying. Trustees resigned. Prince Harry stepped down as patron of his own founding charity, concluding, in his own words, that his relationship with the chairman had deteriorated beyond repair. The Charity Commission for England and Wales launched an inquiry. By every honest account, the public collapse damaged Prince Harry's reputation as a serious philanthropist in a way that may not fully recover. Moved to Archewell, the flagship philanthropic foundation the Sussexes built in California as the institutional centerpiece of their post-royal mission. The body that was supposed to convert celebrity goodwill into measurable impact. By late 2025, the Archewell Foundation had quietly closed. There is no other word for it. The vehicle that was supposed to be the legacy of the entire departure simply ceased to be. That is not a small footnote. That is the institutional spine of the brand vanishing without a successor. Move to Invictus Games, the international sporting competition for wounded service personnel founded by Prince Harry and protected for years by a halo of moral seriousness that almost nobody dared to puncture. By 2026, that halo had begun visibly to come off. A credentialed American airline pilot and former medical finance professional, Rachel Maxwell, working with the journalist Paula Frolick at her Substack newsletter The Scoop and at the American network NewsNation, has spent months publishing serious financial questions about the operation. Boeing, the marquee corporate sponsor, has by recent reporting ended its sponsorship relationship. The Australian government declined to renew $9 million in funding for Invictus Australia after the Sussexes tour there. The investigative author Tom Bauer, in his book Betrayal, made explicit financial allegations in print that the publisher's lawyers cleared and that have not, to this writer's knowledge, been successfully challenged in court. Sponsor after sponsor walking. Funding stream after funding stream pulled. Public scrutiny intensifying. And now Geneva, a new stage, a new cause, the same operating mode, the same. By every honest account, the public collapse damaged Prince Harry's reputation as a serious philanthropist in a way that may not fully recover. The pattern is not random. It is the structural cost of choosing personal brand maximization as the default operating mode. Every time a serious subject is taken on, that operating mode inevitably produces contradiction. There is no way out of the loop except to change the operating mode itself, and nothing in the public record suggests that it is about to change. There is perhaps the most painful note of all for anyone who once hoped Prince Harry and Meghan Markle could become a rescue mission for a generation of post-royal philanthropy. Sykes ended his column with an observation that almost reads as grief on behalf of the platform Meghan Markle once had. There is a version of reality, he wrote, in which Prince Harry and Meghan Markle could have been genuinely effective advocates on serious global causes. The platform of a working senior royal, deployed thoughtfully, could have moved real legislation. It could have shifted real corporate behavior. It could have generated real funding. Instead, that platform was traded in, and the operation that replaced it has, by his judgment, squandered the goodwill required to use the smaller platform that remained. That is the deepest charge against Geneva. Not that the speech was poorly delivered, it was not. Not that the cause is unworthy. The charge is that the messenger, by her own choices the night before, hollowed out her ability to deliver the message credibly. Once that goodwill is hollowed out, every subsequent serious booking lands a little smaller, a little less convincing, a little more thinly attended. The friendly press writes the careful column. The wider press writes the sharper headline. The morning shows go straight to the personal narrative. And the message, whatever it was supposed to be, fails to leave the square. So here is where we land. A trip to Geneva, an A-list global stage. An impeccable Armani trouser suit, a small in-person audience that did not pause its evening. An Instagram post from the night before featuring a 4-year-old daughter and $250,000 worth of clothing visible in a single shot. A respected British correspondent flown in to cover the moment, going home and writing one of the most carefully damning royal columns of the year. An American morning show that ignored the speech entirely and led with the daughter. And, hovering across the entire weekend, the recent memory of another royal woman on another continent drawing crowds who traveled 3 hours just to see her step out of a car. You cannot manufacture 2 decades of consistent behavior by booking a stateswoman moment one Sunday evening in Switzerland. You cannot lecture a global audience about being intentional with every post if your previous post was a wardrobe shot featuring your 4-year-old as the focal point. You cannot have it both ways. And the entire serious commentary on this story from journalists with no axe to grind and decades of reporting behind them has now openly converged on that point. Does she really not see the problem? The answer, by every available piece of evidence, is that perhaps she does not. And that may be the most quietly devastating piece of all. There is one more dimension to all this that the gossip world will not let go of, and that is the awkward state of the marriage itself. By widely reported accounts, the Sussex marriage has been under serious strain for some time. The two of them are increasingly seen apart at public events. The body language at the few joint appearances they have made over the past 12 months has been the subject of dissection across the royal commentary world. Glossy magazines like Town and Country and Harper's Bazaar have run pieces insisting that the couple are stronger than ever, but observers have noted the conspicuous absence of Prince Harry from Geneva entirely. He did not travel. He did not appear in the supporting images. He did not feature in the social posts around the trip. For an event that was supposed to be the biggest of his wife's year, his absence was, in the careful language of the press, notable. That absence is gossip in its own right because the Sussex brand was for years built on the premise of the unit: Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. The team, the partners, the two against the institution. And that unit, by every available indication, is no longer functioning as a single visible operation in the way it once did. Whether that is logistics, scheduling, strain, or something deeper, the public is now being given a steady drip of solo Meghan Markle appearances and solo Prince Harry appearances rather than the joint visual presence that the original brand strategy was constructed around. That shift on its own would be a story placed alongside the close-up photograph and the empty square. It becomes a chapter. The Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales tour of Australia is now on the horizon. The contrast between how that tour will be conducted and what has just unfolded in Geneva will, by every available indication, be sharp. Stay sharp yourself. Stay watching, because the story that began in Italy a week ago and that found its punctuation in Geneva this weekend is not over. It is, by every honest reading, only just entering the chapter that everybody else has been able to see coming for a very long time.